too early to survive usually.
Okay.
It will expire shortly after birth. It's all in how vigorously you do things to help a fetus survive at this point. We would not help it.
Tempers flare at a congressional meeting between a senator and two pro-choicers. Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
And you ain't black.
The first time ever any...
What are you people? We're Americans.
We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent, and this is Middle America. We're not left-wing. We're not right-wing. We're just right. My business today is to inform you, beautiful people, of an exchange that happened earlier in the month, and I think it's extremely telling based on the words that were used. Now, I am only doing this video because I feel an obligation to. Anyway. Let's start. Still the wrong title, it says. You know, I'm starting to get the opinion that YouTube doesn't like what I'm doing here because I changed the title a million times. But thanks for the help, BC. Okay, you won't. Let me try to get the actual title down this time because I felt like I updated everything, but I was wrong, apparently. Okay, so there is the updated title. I updated the title. I'm not gonna kill the thing again. YouTube doesn't like free thought and anti-corporatism. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree, obviously. Okay, so let me provide some context and background for what's going on in the video that we're about to watch. A couple years ago in California, a couple young ladies were investigated and charged, but later released with infanticide due to a stillbirth. Now, normally, the way that I found out about this story was that somebody in Middle America posted this as sort of one of the dystopian realities that's coming to us because of Roe v. Wade being overturned. And so, the pro-abortion folks were posting this and saying, see, this is what happens. This is going to be Handmaid's Tale. Now every woman's going to be investigated every time there's a stillbirth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what actually happened, dear listener, was that this woman was a known meth addict, and she was using all throughout her pregnancy, which directly correlated to the death of her child. Now, if you believe that the state has no prevailing interest in protecting children, then I suppose you could say it's some sort of dystopian future. But most of us would say it is an immoral, terrible thing to use heroin and methamphetamines all throughout your pregnancies when you know it is going to adversely affect the child. Most people would say, yeah, that's not good. Recently, though, Mr. Bonta, which would be the AG, he offered guidance to law enforcement officials that essentially said, we're not going to investigate any stillbirth. So if the woman is a crack addict or if she's a heroin addict or whatever, we're just going to look the other way, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you think there's good reason to believe that young lady had something to do with the death of her child. Now, YouTube is doing all types of craziness to make sure that this video doesn't get seen for some strange reason. But okay, whatever. That's okay. Okay, so that's plank number one. Now, plank number two, in California, there's now discussion on what to do in the event that the abortion fails. Now, keep in mind, currently, there's only one procedure in the United States where the success The bar for success is the death of your patient. I hope you guys understand that in an abortion, the abortionist has two patients. He has the mother and he has the baby. And so it's only considered successful when the death of one of the patients occurs. That's abortion. The question is, let's say that the abortionist doesn't do a very good job of killing the child. What should happen after that? What should happen if the abortionist fails to murder that kid? The kid comes out alive. What should be done to address it? Well, the obvious answer is, well, take care of it, right? Well, here's some background on the fact that that's not what happens. They do not take care of it. Many of these abortionists let the child die. There have been multiple former operators in these abortuaries who explicitly say it was their job to sit in a rocking chair and rock the dead baby to sleep. Rock him to death, essentially. But the video I'm about to show you comes from the executive doctor in one of these clinics, and we have the following. No, Jay, it's not the only one I'm going to be covering. To be honest with you, I'm only doing this because I believe that God wants me to do it right now. I'm not really at the point where I want to deal with this topic at all, but it is what it is. So here we go. Here's the doctor in his own words describing what would happen if he, because this young lady's pregnant, but he doesn't know that this lady's part of a sting operation, which, by the way, I'm in contact with a couple high-profile pro-life leaders that have done serious damage to the abortion capitalists. And so those are coming very soon. And as I've said over and over again, it is women who are at the vanguard of ridding this country of this demonstrably evil practice that we know as abortion. So anytime I see pro-abortion individuals consistently talking about stodgy old white men being responsible for the life revolution, I'm very happy, because that tells me that these folks are not going to be able to defend themselves very well when they actually have to defend this practice at the state level. Because now videos like this, instead of seeing them on some obscure YouTube channel, you're going to see commercials like this. And regular people are going to be informed on what the hell is actually going on in their country relative to this topic. Okay, so here we go.
This is expired, so it does.
Okay, so has it ever survived?
After
When it comes out?
Not here, no.
Okay.
No, it could. I mean, if some people go into labor, prior to us, when you do this, what we do is we try and help the cervix dilate, and some people will go into labor before we do the procedure.
Okay.
And that can happen.
Okay.
It's unusual.
And then what do you...
Usually at this point in your
What do you
pregnancy, it's too early to survive usually.
Okay.
It will expire shortly after birth.
But if it did, like what would happen? Like, would I have to take it home or like be responsible for
I mean, technically, legally we would be obligated to help it, to survive. But, it probably wouldn't. It's all in how vigorously you do things to help a fetus survive at this point. When you have a pregnancy that's 23, 24 weeks, if you're, extra, if you do everything possible to help it survive, there's maybe a 20 to 30% chance that it would survive. If you don't do anything, then, the chances are much, much less.
I'm just like so scared of like
Sure,
having to be stuck with the
that's
responsibility.
obviously,
So, like, would you make sure that it like
Yeah,
it doesn't
there's
survive?
things you do. Obviously, you're here for a certain procedure, and if your pregnancy were, let's say you went into labor, the membrane's ruptured, and you delivered before we got to the termination part of the procedure here. then we would do things, we would not help it.
Okay.
Let's say, we wouldn't intubate.
We wouldn't help it. If we try to kill your child and the laminaria causes labor instead of simply thinning out your vaginal wall so that we can better kill this child, if the laminaria ends up causing labor and your child is born, we won't help it. We'll leave it there to die. It's a fact. Many former Planned Parenthood operators have said it. All these people say this stuff. This is what, if you've ever been in the fight on this topic, you know this happens and you know it's true. Okay. That is the context for the video that we are about to see, dear listener. Okay? The previous issue with the moral conundrum of what do you do with a young lady who uses heroin, crack, real hard, dangerous drugs that she knows is going to result in the detriment of that child. Does she hold any moral responsibility for the death of that child? Secondly, if you are trying to murder your child and the child mistakenly lives, what should the doctor who's attempting to murder the child do in the case that he fails in his attempt to kill this child? Should he have to resuscitate that child? That or aid in the continuance of the life of the child. That is the context of this discussion. Here is TYT's coverage.
South Carolina Representative Ralph Norman tried to equate infanticide and abortion. Republicans are pretty much trying to change the definition of abortion, but when he did this, he got...
Of course, this is just a game of semantics. These people believe you should be able to have abortions all the way up to the 9th month. We've already demonstrated that in clear relief. So the semantics of infanticide versus abortion, they want to hold the line and say, no, we don't believe in infanticide. We just believe in abortion, as if there's a real moral difference between the fact that the child has exited the birth canal versus the child being within the womb. Speaking of after birth abortion, though, here's I've referenced this article on numerous occasions. Here's the article. The name, you'll notice the top of the article, dear listener. You'll notice what the article is entitled. It is entitled "After Birth Abortion: Why Should the Baby Live?" That is by Francesca Minerva and Martino Gubellini. I have challenged many of my pro-abortion friends to read that article and deal with it, and to this moment, none of them have even attempted to do so. So it is not right-wingers who are using the term after-birth abortion. This is a term that was coined around 2012, 2013 by Francesca Minerva and Martino Gubellini. We continue.
Schooled by pro-choice advocate Sarah Lopez. Let's watch that.
Mr. Shannon, do you agree with infanticide?
Okay, so what Mr. Norman is specifically talking about here is, should California make it mandatory that a child is protected if you fail to kill him or her? Because he's saying, you folks keep saying that as long as it's in the womb, it's a fetus, but when it's outside of the womb, it's a baby. It's unscientific and it's irrational. It makes no sense. You can have a 6-month-old preemie who's in the NICU, who's outside of the womb, who's less developed and has less chances of survival than an 8.5-month-old in the womb. But in Colorado, you can have that 8.5-month-old killed because it's still a fetus, but the 6-month-old in the NICU, we should not kill because it's a baby, because it's outside the womb, even though it's less developed and it's less likely to live. That's the logical pretzel these people put themselves in to justify this action. And no, I'm not mincing any words today. You can just sign off. We continue.
Well, I think you're using inflammatory language.
Now, you'll notice, he asked a question, do you believe in infanticide? Do you believe we should do infanticide? It's a yes or no question. Let's see if any of these two ladies will answer the simple yes or no question, do you believe in infanticide? Let's see. You know, this exchange reminds me of a lot of the exchanges I've had on this platform when people who support this practice refuse to answer basic questions.
Watch that.
Mr. Shannon, do you agree with infanticide?
Well, I think you're using inflammatory language to basically describe a situation that does not happen. We don't have infanticide happening. Doctors would not do that, and neither would folks who have carried pregnancy.
Okay, would a healthy child, do you agree if a healthy child is born, that is that woman's right to decide if it lives or dies?
What I think is, based on your question, you have a very low opinion of pregnant people. Because if you think that anybody would...
The question he asked was, if you tried to kill your child in abortion and the child, in God's providence, survived, do you think it's up to the mother to determine whether or not that child should live or die? That's a simple question. And since all of you pro-abortion people keep saying it's not a fetus, it's not a baby, it's a fetus, even though we've demonstrated 8 trillion times that a fetus and a baby are literally the exact same thing. But since you say because it's in the birth canal, it is it's not really a human being. Okay, this kid is outside of the birth canal. It came out. Should we protect it, or is it still the mother's right to kill that child? Very simple question. Notice, though, no answer directly given.
Answer the question.
Excuse me.
Answer the question.
I'm answering it. Do you
No,
want
you're not.
You want
I
to
will
answer,
take it
or
that
you
you
want to
agree.
keep talking over witnesses? What I'm telling you is nobody would carry a pregnancy and then decide on a Monday because they are bored that they want to have an abortion.
Norman, then...
Nobody would carry a pregnancy and then decide on a Monday that they were bored, etc. Now, this is part of the lie that pro-choicers use to justify late-term abortions. They say things like that only happens for fatal fetal anomaly or life of the mother. Of course, when you ask them what procedure in these late-term months, what malady in the late term of pregnancy would necessitate an abortion over a C-section, I've yet to get that answer either. Here is what the scientists and the scholars say about late-term abortions and why they occur. Here is the article. You guys know how I get down. I always source all of my documentation because I believe it's important when you make a claim to show your listeners that you've done the due diligence and done your homework to make sure that what you're saying is accurate. I think that that's very, very important, especially as it regards this discussion. And I think this is where, this thing just completely falls apart for these folks when you actually have to deal with facts. Okay. Now I want to show you the source I'm pulling from. Okay. Late-term abortion, a medical necessity, a failure of science. There's the PubMed article. It's a .org article. It's quoted. It's peer-reviewed. And here is the salient point in that article, because it is, again, this is a desperation of people who know that their cash cow is about to go away. Okay? Here is what this scholarly peer-reviewed article says as to the reasons why women get late-term abortions. This characterization that we are against late-term abortions because we're saying that women wake up randomly on a Monday and decide they don't want a child is absolutely ridiculous. That is not the argument. That is not what we've ever said. And they're purposely obfuscating this because they don't believe that people are going to do the commensurate research to validate what they're saying. Here's what the article actually says. While the occasional politician or news reporter will still indicate that late-term abortions are most often performed in the case of severe fetal anomalies or to save the woman's life, the trajectory of the peer-reviewed research literature has been obvious for decades. Most late-term abortions are elective, done on healthy women with healthy fetuses, and are for the same reasons given by women experiencing first trimester abortion. The Guttmacher Institute, the reporting arm of Planned Parenthood, has provided a a number of reports over 2 decades which have identified the reasons why women choose abortion, and they have consistently reported that childbearing would interfere with their education, work, and ability to care for existing dependents, and it would be a financial burden and would disrupt partner relationships. A more recent Guttmacher study focused on abortion after 20 weeks of gestation and similarly concluded women seeking late-term abortions are not doing so for reasons of fetal anomaly or life endangerment, end quote. The reporting arm of Planned Parenthood, peer-reviewed documentation indicates very clearly that women get late-term abortions for the same reasons that they get first-term abortions. Well, why would a woman do that randomly? No, it's not randomly. What happens is she first got pregnant, the boyfriend was cool with it, and then later on, the boyfriend got cold feet, decided he didn't want the kid. She was 24 weeks along, and he marched her to the clinic, and she had an abortion. I've seen that a million times. There are lots of scenarios in which a woman would get a late-term abortion. But again, the research data tells us that they're getting late-term abortions for the same reason they're getting early-term abortions. Now, the question that was asked was, if we try to kill this child and the child comes out alive, should we resuscitate it or let it die? Is that still the right of the mother? To this point, we haven't gotten a yes or no answer. Maybe we will get one later, though, inshallah. Let's see.
Turn to Fatima Goss Graves, who is the National Women's Law Center leader, and the exchange went just about as well as that last one. Let's watch that.
With all those words, you do agree with basically murdering a child after they're born. Miss Graves, could you answer that? Would you just yes or no?
I have to say, Congressman, how you just characterize the representative statement is extremely inflammatory and the type of thing that it's dangerous.
And what
you guys have been talking today about the threats against crisis pregnancy centers, which I assume are serious and are terrible. The threats that people who work on abortion access take every single day.
See, she's trying to filibuster because he has a limited period of time. He asked her a very specific question. She is refusing to give an answer. And she believes that her non-answer and her filibustering is going to help people escape the reality. But if you go to the actual C-SPAN website or YouTube page where this is and you look at the comments section, everybody was saying they never answered the question. So these people really truly believe that by not answering the question, they've gotten some victory.
That you're for infanticide. I would also say that her language that health, Madam Chair,
Gentleman's time.
This is not okay. It's not okay to ask a question. All you had to do was say, of course I disagree with infanticide. Of course, if the child makes it out alive, it's still a patient. We should try to restore its life and do whatever we could to reverse the effects of trying to murder him minutes earlier. She didn't say that. And the reason is because she wants women to be able to decide after you've tried to kill this child, even outside of the womb, they're trying to make it so that women still have that right. Dear listener, these people, much like in the antebellum slave period, believe that children are the property of their parents to dispense with as they wish. This is not new, by the way. In the Roman times, during the first Christian century, you had this doctrine called the pater familia, and the father was able to determine what would happen with a pregnancy. So if there are letters written back from the front, hey, if it's a boy, good. If it's a girl, expose it, which means leave it in the town square for animals and leave them to the elements. Because in the pater familia doctrine in Roman times, the people in the household were the property of the father, not just the slaves, but the wives as well as the children. They were property. And these people have simply turned the pater familia into the mater familia. So now the mother not only has a right to do what she wants with her body, which we all know is untrue, but she also has a right to determine whether or not the child that she just tried to assist in killing should be able to get life-saving treatment should the doctor fail at his attempt of killing that child.
Republicans are really having a field day saying that folks on the left are advocating for abortion after birth, which is infanticide, which is...
I've just explained to you that that's absolutely what you guys have been doing at least since 2012 and well before that. And again, this young lady believes that there's a real difference between the 4 or 5 inches of the child being in the birth canal and not being in the birth canal. She really thinks that bestows upon the child some new strange ontology. Ma'am, what do you call killing a child who's 8 months in the womb? I'd say that that's infanticide. I'd also say killing a child at 20 weeks is infanticide. We've got people at 21 weeks that have survived. My wife is currently at 27 weeks. And these people believe that it should be that she feels that kid moving every day. And these people are trying to tell us that that it's not infanticide if you kill it when it's inside the womb. It's only infanticide outside the womb. And they're trying to make some real moral sort of argument that they're still moral people because they support killing the child inside the womb. Here are the conclusions to Martino Gubellini and Francesca Minerva's article, After Birth Abortion, Why Should the Baby Live? If criteria such as cost, social, psychological, and economic, for the potential parents are good enough reasons for having an abortion, even when the fetus is healthy, if the moral status of the newborn is the same as that of the fetus, and if neither has any moral value by virtue of being a potential person, then the same reasons which justify abortion should also justify the killing of the potential person when it's at the stage of a newborn, end quote. Stop trying to deceive your audience, ma'am, into thinking that y'all are not talking about this. You are. And as I said, there is no difference, morally speaking, between what you do to the child inside the womb or outside of the womb. Now I agree with Francesca and Martino Gubellini. There is no moral difference. That's why you shouldn't kill anyone. That's why you shouldn't kill anyone.
Legal, and a lot of us have been wondering where the heck this is coming from. There was a bill in California that Republicans have been mischaracterizing for the past few months, spreading misinformation about it on the internet. The bill is AB 2223. And what the bill discusses is ensuring that women are not prosecuted if they have a miscarriage or if they have a stillbirth, because this happened in 2 cases in California. It's unfortunate that this...
Is she going to tell you the circumstances of the cases? Is she going to say that these women were on methamphetamines and heroin, which caused the obvious death of their children, and so they were prosecuted for that? Is she going to tell you that? No. Why? Because if she told her audience that, the audience would say, well, that's not Handmaid's Tale. But these people are liars. The abortion capitalists in America are liars. And please understand, dear listener, as I quoted to you from the scholarly article, the medical journal I just posted to you, the number one reason are economic reasons. So we've got a capitalist construction in our society that tells women that they cannot succeed in this economy by having children. So we've got a capitalist society that devours children on a daily basis because that's how we've constructed our economy. And the folks at the top of the abortion industry are compensated very, very well for their efforts. Go to Dr. Hearn, he'll tell you. He's getting $10,000 a pop per 8-9-month-old abortion that he does.
Bill is even necessary, and to be very clear about it, the bill states, notwithstanding any other law, a person shall not be subject to civil or criminal liability or penalty or otherwise deprived of their rights based on their actions or omissions with respect to their pregnancy or actual, potential, or alleged pregnancy outcome, including miscarriage, still life, or abortion, or perinatal death. Now, this bill is not legalized.
So she did not tell you the legal cases that triggered the bill, which once again were 2 women using heroin and methamphetamine and killed their children in utero. She's going to leave that out. She's going to leave that out for obvious reasons. She's leaving it out because anybody who supports this practice knows the only way to do that is to just constantly lie to people. It's unbelievable to me.
Including miscarriage, still life, or abortion, or perinatal death. Now, this bill is not legalizing infanticide.
By the way, in California, with one of the cases, in California, you get charged with double murder if you kill a pregnant woman. And so this girl got charged because she killed a child in her womb. And the other AG came and said, well, no, there's an exception for women if they do it to their own child. This is a logic in California, and this is a logic, I'm sorry, of many of my pro-choice interlocutors. Which once again proves that these people believe in another form of Southern slavery where people can have property. You see, if an assailant comes and kills a child and the mother wanted that piece of property, then he gets charged. But if the mother decides she doesn't want it, then she doesn't get charged. That indicates then the only variable is the will of this woman. That means that the child in her womb is not an individual separate human. The child in her womb is her property. And now what these folks are saying, even if the child is outside the womb, the child is still her property to dispense with as she wishes. We continue.
The bill very clearly allows for authorities to investigate the facts of a newborn child's death, including whether the child was born living and when and how the child died. So to equate abortion with infanticide is dangerous, as these two advocates pointed out.
As we've explained, we're not the ones who came up with the term after-birth abortion. That was your team. You guys came up with that term. Furthermore, it's dangerous to abortion capitalists, because most people who are not knee deep in this fight are going to be surprised because they keep getting told that what's being done in an abortion is a removal of cells. These people are not being told this, that we're giving birth to living babies who are squirming and moving around, and then we purposely snip the umbilical cord and do a bunch of other things to make sure the child dies. Most people said, I didn't sign up for that. I signed up for removal of cells. I didn't sign up for a doctor killing a kid and then leaving him to die. What the hell? So yeah, I agree. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous. But they still haven't answered the question, dear listener.
They've, encountered a lot of violence because they give abortions to people, and by telling the public,
these women have encountered a lot of violence. What are you talking about? Again. The real people who are encountering violence are the babies who are being deconstructed alive in the womb. And secondly, if some crazy person went to an abortion clinic and started shooting it up, at least these women have a fighting chance of running for their lives. The child has zero chance whatsoever. And if it so happens that the abortion is botched and the unthinkable happens and he survives the attempted abortion, these people are telling us they'll still let the child die. So if we're worried about violence, I agree with you. We should stop violence against innocent people. I wonder if this lady will agree with me that we should stop all forms of violence against human beings. I hope you understand that if you support this practice, you cannot say you are against all forms of violence against innocent human beings. You can't say that.
You're an elected official. You're telling people precisely that if you're getting an abortion, this could include killing a baby after it's already born. It's really dangerous. Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you put it a lot more politely than I would, and so did the people testifying there in front of Congress. But this story is not just about abortion. There's something very important in this story as well. I'm going to get to that in a second. But first, on the issue itself, killing a baby after it is born has a word. It's called murder. It's not allowed under any law.
Okay, so now in 13 states in the union, killing a baby in the form of abortion is against the law. So that means abortion is murder, at least 50% of the time.
Any circumstances. The Republicans are making that up 100% because they're goddamn liars.
We just showed you that the Republicans are not making that up. The intro clip had the executive doctor at that particular branch who said explicitly that he would not help the child and that he would kill the child. And we just quoted Francesca Minerva and Martina Gubellini. I don't know if Cenk knows this or not because Cenk has a canned response for everything. But again, If you truly believe that you were on the side of truth and justice for women, you wouldn't be lying as much as Cenk is lying. Or you would respect the topic enough to do some cursory research on it. We continue.
Okay, so it's not a thing. It's not a thing. No one's ever allowed to do that. They were never allowed to do that under any bill. By the way, you know what also prevents that? Roe, or at least used to prevent it. Because they make it seem like you can get an abortion anytime you want, all the way up to after the birth. That's not what Roe says. Roe says in the 3rd trimester, the state has a right to protect what is then a viable person.
Late-term abortions, Cenk, are not only counted in the 3rd trimester. Okay? That's number one. Number one. So here we go. Here's Cenk saying that's just not allowed, man. We don't do stuff like that. We just don't do stuff like that. Okay. Furthermore, he wants to ignore the Casey decision, which absolutely has been used to expand abortion all the way up to the moment preceding birth. You can go watch the Kathy Tran video for that information. We continue.
And so that becomes an independent human being as opposed to a dependent one. So, and it's there's different rights at different trimesters, and in the beginning when it's a zygote, it doesn't have any rights, right? Because it's a zygote and not an independent human being.
It's not an independent human being, dear listener. When a child is born, he's actually more dependent than when he's not. In other words, when the child is in the womb, a lot of the help that he needs is automated by the body. The mother has to do very little. As a matter of fact, all she has to do most of the time is eat and sleep. That's what I'm trying to convince my wife to do. Just eat and sleep. When he's born, he's far from independent. She is far from independent, Cenk. Her skull hasn't even completely fused together. And she needs mommy for everything. And there's a lot more effort that goes into helping that newborn than that goes into helping the child in the womb. So again, this again is just more of the same lies from these folks who are either lying to you or completely and totally ignorant of the facts of these situations. We continue.
So they've mischaracterized that forever and ever and ever, right? So, and why do they do that? Is that just, oh my God, is that right? That's so embarrassing. We said infanticide, but we meant, you have rights in the 1st and 2nd trimester. No, they're lying on purpose. So, but the important part of this is one of the very first times that I've seen Democrats testifying in front of Congress where they fought back. So my whole life, and Democrats are...
They fought back? They fought back by not answering a question and obviously leaving it open that they do support infanticide? That's what you call fighting back? Okay. All right. We could... I guess these people really believe that these are compelling arguments. They fought back. No, they just simply avoided the question because they didn't want to be on video saying that they support infanticide. But their non-answer is still an answer, Cenk.
Oh, before they go testify before Congress, no matter what lunatic Republican says, and almost all the Republican congressmen are straight out of a mental institution. They're all liars and lunatics, okay? No matter what insane thing they say, you have to be super polite and deferential. Oh yes, sir, absolutely, sir. Maybe, sir, could be, sir, I don't know, sir, right? They train them that way. Do not ever fight back against Republicans. Why? Why? What? Hey, if the guy's a lunatic, why didn't you call him a lunatic? If I was them, look, I love what they did. That was great. I love that they fought back.
Well, of course.
Dumb rules of
Of course, you love the way they answered the question because they didn't answer the question. Cenk, listen, I'm a veteran of this war. This happens all the time. Anytime there's a discussion on this channel, vast majority of the time, 9 times out of 10, pro-choicers will never answer questions directly. They never will. And it's because they are supporting something indefensible. And by the way, you can't say anything about how broken up you are about violence committed against a 10-year-old child if you support violence against a 10-week-old child. You support violence against children. Period. And in my view, you're in the exact same category. Yes, I said it. Go ahead and Google a 24-week abortion and look at what it looks like. Look it in the face. Don't sit here and tell me that you cry over the kids in Uvalde and you cry over the 10-year-old, but then you support the live dissection of human beings and then say you're some moral person. And no, there is no middle ground on this topic. You're not a moral person. You're not a good person if you support the killing of children, especially children after they're born. There's only one side on this issue. Period. All these cowardly people trying to take some sort of moderate view on this topic. It's sickening. Really, you sicken me. Go for the gold. You either support dismembering children alive or you don't. But there is no, oh, I think it's bad, but I'm going to leave it up to the mother. No, that's called moral cowardice, and you're worse than than Cenk here. We continue.
Establishment Democrats that have ruined this country are beginning to break. The walls are cracking, and people are going, no, I'm just going to answer the goddamn guy. This guy's an idiot, right?
No, he didn't. No, she didn't answer the guy. All of that fluff was her not answering the guy, Cenk. That's what that is. I'm very familiar with it. So are the people on this channel. Everybody knows. Everybody's seen it. You get a pro-choicer in there, they won't answer direct questions. They'll say that you're loading the question or whatever because they don't want to come on TV and tell everybody that they support dismembering children.
Yes, but I would have said, Congressman Norman, you appear to be an idiot. There is no law in the country that says you can kill someone after they're born. That has nothing to do with abortion. How do I know? Because they're already born.
The law should be if you try to kill a child and it makes it somehow outside of the birth canal, you are federally obligated to care for that child. So that doctor at the beginning who told us that he would cut the umbilical cord and just let the child die should spend the rest of his life in prison. That's what should happen.
Abortion is when they're not born. Are you really that stupid, Congressman Norman? I would have asked. And then people would have been outraged. Oh, this decorum has been broken. No, the decorum was broken by that goddamn liar who pretended that we're killing children. That broke decorum, not me calling him a liar. So.
Oh, it was by the liar who's pretending that we're killing children. This if I wanted to give enough energy to this topic, I really don't, because like I said, today is not the day for me. But I had actually one of these pro-abortion folks last week. He said, prove to me that abortion's killing a child. I said, oh, okay, here's the definition of fetus. This is the Oxford English Dictionary. I showed him the definition of fetus, and his response to me was, yeah, but is it a child? Show me where we're killing a child. Here it says fetus, an unborn offspring of a mammal, in particular an unborn human baby more than 8 weeks after conception. There it is. So I showed him. He said, well, that's not a child. It's a baby, but it's not a child. That's where we are. Yes, Cenk, you're absolutely killing children in abortion. They're called babies. Babies are the smallest children in the world, but they're still children. That's what that means. We continue.
I like that they were aggressive. Do more, hit harder.
Of course that's true, and these are attempts on the part.
Hit harder. They didn't hit anything. They didn't answer the question, thereby admitting that they do support abortion after the child is born.
The GOP to take this brute force approach to a wedge cultural issue.
Unbelievable, a brute force approach. So tearing the child literally in half and crushing it till its brain matter oozes out of the floor. That is not brutal. But saying if you try to kill the kid and the kid somehow survive, you at least have to help it. That's brutal. This is the Orwellian hellscape these people live in. It's what they tell themselves to ease their conscience.
And this is their strategy and their game plan that has worked. And so what Cenk is saying is something very important. If they're going to use brute force, you can't respond.
Here's all he talks about is late term. That's a lie. An 8-week abortion is not a late term abortion. Cattle murder, aptly named, because anybody who supports that supports murder, so your name is apt. I do not just talk about late term abortion. You're lying. I have a lot of videos on this forum where I talk about abortion, and I don't just talk about late-term abortion. Nice try, though. An 8-week fetus is not a late-term abortion.
With decorum, and you saw the aggressive nature of questioning from Norman. I mean, that could have carried that media moment, but instead there was slapback. I really believe that.
Yeah, and these people are they're so caught in their echo chamber, they don't realize they didn't take the time to look at the comment section under the original video where everybody saw that these two women wouldn't answer the question because they support infanticide. So this stuff this is how I know when people haven't hit the floor. They haven't hit the streets. Because it's you say stuff like this when you haven't hit the streets. It's the same thing I tell my trans friend. If you do a lot of your activism over online, you're gonna have a skewed understanding of how it works. You got to do your activism on the street and confront people and see people's reaction when they see videos like that. But I'm glad. I'm so happy that all these people keep doing this. I love it. I love it. Because it means that we're about to be rid of this curse from our country, inshallah.
The messaging in this area particularly is important because they're taking this issue. You could say they've already won in many ways on this wedge issue. I mean, it's grotesque that this country has gone in this direction.
It's grotesque that we cannot disassemble babies alive in the womb. It's grotesque that we cannot poison them to death. And the mother passes the child in excruciating pain, by the way. I just saw a show yesterday. They were giving this woman an abortion. It's like, take 1 pill here, take 3 pills there, and then you're done. Oh, it's so simple. Actually talk to women who've actually used that procedure. There's a lot of really ugly evidence I could present, and I can't do it because I don't have the stomach for it, dear listener.
And yet, now you have to apply with utter aggression the aggressiveness of someone like Norman and the GOP that are trying to take the narrative with brute force.
Yeah, Benjamin says...
Absolutely. I think also what's going on here is they didn't accept the framing.
Benjamin says, very important, when your argument shifts time and time again, you've lost the argument or have shaky principles. Pro-aborts move from clump of cells to consciousness to birth canal, etc. Exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Now, I will say, I will have some grace for the clump of cells thing. 1973, we didn't have, 4D tech and all the stuff that we have now. So I understand in the 70s. But in 2022, you're either completely disinterested in human life or you're just lying. Period. Unbelievable.
The question, it really reminds me of Pete Buttigieg's appearance on Fox News. If someone's asking you a ridiculous line of questioning, you don't have to accept that framing.
Okay. Silencing Dissent says, you know that women have miscarriages all throughout their lives and are not even aware of them. My question is, at what point is it an actual life? I've had early miscarriages and 3 children. Silencing Dissent, thankfully for us, the biologists have answered that question. 96% of biologists who were surveyed across multiple countries, by the way, 80% of these people identified as Democrat and pro-choice, said explicitly that human life begins at fertilization. That's at a clip of 96%. That is a higher consensus than climatologists have for climate change. And you can go ask the folks in Britain right now if climate change is a real thing or not.
Respond by clarifying that the framing is actually the issue here, so that
no, the framing isn't the issue. The issue is you don't want to be on TV and say that you believe that children are the properties of their mothers to dispense with as they see fit.
people aren't talking past each other, which happens all the time when people testify on the floor of Congress.
Yeah. And by the way, if establishment Democrats tell you any rules, ignore them. If they're on paper, burn them safely in a garbage can where they belong. Okay, all those rules are stupid and they've destroyed the Democratic Party. At every occasion, when you run into a lying Republican, you should fight back super aggressively, politically and rhetorically, never physically, okay? But don't ever let Republicans...
Right, save your physical violence for defenseless babies. You know, things have happened to me outside when I was doing street work. People threatened to kill me, threatened to murder me in front of police, by the way. Have done all kinds of things, and you know, people who are sympathetic to the cause would come up to me after and like, oh my God, man, you're so brave, blah 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 blah. I said, I'm not brave anything. I'm a grown man, and by the way, I fully believe I'd be able to take care of myself if somebody tried to do some nonsense like that to me. But the point is, I'm an adult. I made a decision to go there. These children made no decisions to exist, and they made no decisions to be put in the situation that they're in. They're the victims. If there's going to be violence, I wish people would have channeled the murderous violence towards me instead of their babies. But make no mistake about it. If you support this practice, you support an eminently violent action against literally the most defenseless group of people on this planet. And there is no middle ground for that.
Is lie and get away with it, and that's all they ever do. And if you hear a Republican talking, it is very likely that they're lying.
I would say one old school, independent, but Bernie Sanders actually has always done this well. He is a terrific communicator. I mean, I know that.
I want to handle this very, very carefully. Based on the miscarriages that I'm aware of, I'm positive that wasn't a baby. Ma'am, number one, I'm extremely sorry you had a miscarriage. My wife had one, and she still thinks about it to this day. And in her particular case, having other children did not fill that gap for her. But whether or not you, in your opinion, thought it looked like a baby is irrelevant to the facts of science. There were white people that believed that because of my brown skin, I was closer to a gorilla than a human. They truly believed that. And if you'd have told those white people in the antebellum South, no, they're just as human as you, they'd laugh at you. Because they were putting black kids in zoos and cages. You'd see a gorilla in a cage, then you'd see a little black kid in a cage. So their mind was socialized to not view them as human beings. So it doesn't matter what your perception is or mine. I'm not saying we shouldn't kill children because they're cute. What I'm saying is, if you're a Homo sapien, you're on the team and you should be protected. That's the argument. Not, what does it look like to you?
You know, he may have let down the progressives in some way, but the one thing he does is he seizes the media moment and he speaks in that across the fence aggressive style.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders, although because of his Medicare for All push, I was going to vote for him. But in the providence of God, that didn't happen. But Bernie Sanders is a particularly ruthless individual when it comes to children. This man presided in Vermont where there were no gestational limits for child killing in his state. And he proudly backed that up. And he refused to say that he was against mega late-term abortion. So he's right. Bernie Sanders is particularly cruel when it comes to this particular topic.
You've got to fight.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you got to fight. Yeah, you got to fight. I agree. We do need to fight. We need to fight lies and misinformation and disinformation. A fetus, as we've seen, is a baby. We've seen that. There's no debate. There's no discussion. That's a baby. So, I mean, that should be the end of it. But it's not the end of it with these folks. And I think it's very important that people realize what we're dealing with here. Okay? Now, let me show you guys something. Here's Encyclopedia Britannica. So we already know what a fetus is. A fetus is an unborn human baby, according to the facts. What is an embryo? An embryo is the early developmental stage of an animal while it is in the egg or within the uterus of the mother. Can't have a mother without a child. In humans, the term is applied to the unborn child. Until the 7th week following conception, from the 8th week, the unborn child is called a fetus. Okay? So cattle murder, that is the answer to your question about 8 weeks or not. In the embryonic stage, it is an unborn child. At the fetal stage, it's a baby. That's Oxford. That's Encyclopedia Britannica. So, at any stage where abortions are prevalent, we are killing human children. That is a fact. That's science. That is not my opinion. That's a fact. Unbelievable. That's all fine and dandy if you live in some kind of moral fantasy land. Yes, Baba, I do live in a moral fantasy land. Much like the abolitionists during the slave trade that were saying the same thing to people just like you who said, yeah, Negroes are human, whatever, but we're not in some moral fairy tale. Slavery is the common denominator of the whole world and all world history, and they were right, by the way. They were right about that. So I can always tell people who are not part of marginalized communities, who's had their humanity debated by well-meaning moderates. Because I'm from a group of people that have had their humanity debated by well-meaning moderates. All right. All right. What are they supposed to say? The probable baby? No, dissent. They're supposed to say the baby because that's what we're murdering in abortion. That's what's happening. Okay, so look, guys. Like I said, I wasn't really in the mood for this. I did this because I felt that I had to do it. And I'm usually not this blunt and explicit, but make no mistake, if you've been watching this channel for any period of time and you've seen the actual scholarly discussions on this topic and you still support this practice, it's because you're evil and you should repent. And some of you are very, very close to my heart, but I'm not going to say you're on the wrong side of history. It's evil. We're talking about trying to kill a child and then leaving him there to die because you were unsuccessful in killing him initially. And if you think there's any space in that for any sort of, I don't care what your framework is, atheist, humanist, whatever, if you think there's any space for that and being a moral person, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. And history will hold all of you accountable for it. All of you who took part in this practice or stayed silent in the face of the facts. I don't give a fuck how many of you unsubscribed or no longer want to be my friend. You support this practice, you're absolutely immoral. And you don't need to be a Christian to know that. Okay. Much love to everybody. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. And I am going to fight this fucking scourge on the planet Earth until I'm gone or until it's gone. Period.